I think the one thing I would say is that DNA evidence in a lot of ways, and speaking as a practitioner, as a trial lawyer, DNA evidence is powerful, but it's like any other evidence. You have to really appreciate and understand the context of, how it was collected and how it was analyzed and how it fits in your case. Because, here the one thing was, and the important thing that I kind of really harped on, in addition to attacking what's the theory of secondary transfer, was I really focused on the trunk itself, the trunk of the car, that is. And because I think that the trunk, like just opening up the trunk and looking inside, there was like a story there. There was a narrative there. My client clearly had lent his car to other people. He had allowed other people access to the trunk. And as the cops were searching through it, and you could see on body camera footage, they pulled paperwork belonging to him, paperwork belonging to his girlfriend. And my client was a really big guy. At one point, the cops pulled out skinny jeans, and I kind of paused the video during my closing. And I pointed at the skinny jeans and I said, no offense, but there's no way he's fitting into those jeans. I think the jury kind of appreciated it. And because the point I was making is that it wasn't just him that had access to the car. And that blew, because I think a lot of prosecutors, the gun's in their car, they own it, boom, open and shut case. But I kind of, through that, I showed that, hey, someone else was there. Someone had the opportunity to put the gun there. And then, the DNA evidence kind of fit into that narrative. And especially when you talk about the analyst failing to test the bullets, the one piece of evidence that was impervious to secondary transfer, that kind of really, I think, hit home for the jury and fit within the overall narrative that I presented to them. And I think that that's kind of like the lesson, is that there's no charge and there's no crime in this country where an element of it is that someone's DNA is on an object or is on an item. Instead, it's obvious that they either knowingly, possessed an item, or that they, fired a weapon. It kind of, the DNA is not part of the state's proofs, it's part of the narrative. And how you shape the narrative and how you explain how the DNA evidence got there, either through contamination from the police officers, secondary transfer, or otherwise, is what's important. And the fact that you have, DNA evidence on something doesn't necessarily mean one way or the other that it's a slam dunk. It's just a part of the case. It's not something even that the prosecution has to prove at all.